Hey, Robin Taylor here, mama to 3, married to my high school sweetheart, and entrepreneur. I wanted to share, and Charlie wants to be a part of the video, so here she is. Say hi. I just wanted to quickly come on here and share a little bit about our breastfeeding journey. So Charlie was born July 19th. And as we were getting discharged from the hospital, she started puking up green. And through a long series, which felt like forever, it was determined that she had Hirschsprung's disease. And that is basically the bottom portion of her colon did not have the correct cells to continue to push everything through. And so she had to have a surgery, and they had to cut out a portion of her colon and replace it and put it back together. And so she was in the NICU for 2 weeks. So after she was born, breastfeeding was going fine. She was latching good. I had a C-section, but they were able to put her on me right away. And I think that always really helps. And then in the NICU, obviously she couldn't breastfeed, and for quite some time she couldn't even eat, really. She couldn't even bottle feed or anything. She was just on IV fluids and antibiotics while waiting for her surgery. And then after the surgery, we had to wait until she pooped, and when she pooped, we could finally start feeding her. And so we started out with feeding her a bottle the first day. The next day, we were able to start breastfeeding again. And it was definitely very challenging. So anybody that's been through a NICU stay understands, that life of pumping, and then bottle feeding, and then trying to go back to the breastfeeding. And so I was really worried that, is she going to be able to go back to breastfeeding, and how is that going to work? And she was. However, in the NICU, she wasn't gaining weight. She was actually losing weight. And so it was recommended that we started supplementing with formula. So we did that a little bit. And then, she was released from the NICU. We went to her pediatrician, and she still wasn't gaining weight like she should be. So we continued to supplement. We had to try different formulas. She had reflux. We then had to see if she had pyloric stenosis, so more testing, and did a sonogram for that. She didn't. It was just reflux. Thought she had maybe a dairy allergy, so I cut out dairy for probably about 6 months. And that was really hard and crazy, and thought it was the dairy. Turns out it wasn't, and she just grew out of it. We just continued to breastfeed. And I would just want to encourage you that if you're not thinking that you have, if you're thinking you have a low supply, or you're having issues, with breastfeeding, I would just encourage you to just keep trying. Even if you have to supplement, I just want to encourage you to always breastfeed first, try to put them on. And then, if they're still hungry after you've breastfed off both sides, then give them some formula, and just, continue to do that. And then also pump. So I think what helped me is I would feed her, and then if, she was still seeming hungry after feeding her on both sides, for like 15-20 minutes each side, I would then give her, a couple ounces of the formula, and kind of gauge it. If she's drinking all of that, or she's drinking most of it, then, she's probably still hungry. And, but then I would pump. And so that's like sending a message to your body that, hey, you still need to produce more milk. And so I would just keep going. If breastfeeding is something that you really want to do, then keep trying. And even if, you supplement with formula the entire time, the whole first year, or whatever that looks like for you, you're still doing a great job. Regardless, if you go straight to formula, all formula, you're doing the best you can. But if you really want to breastfeed and you're having a hard time, I would just want to tell you that it's totally normal. I think that it can be really hard for some people, and some people it's just a little easier, but especially if you have a baby in the NICU and you have these extra circumstances of, you know, a surgery or anything like that, you know, just give yourself some grace and give yourself, you know, try to be patient with yourself and with the baby. And we ended up stopping supplementing. She was just spitting up so bad when we would do the formula. So we just did all breastfeeding. And what ended up happening is my supply met her demand, and we were able to just only breastfeed and pump. You know, I returned to work at 12 weeks and I pump at work. And I basically, I'm not an overproducer at all, but I don't think I'm an underproducer either. I produce exactly what she needs. And I think it's a misconception that a lot of people have, that they have a low supply. And it's very uncommon to actually have a low supply. I was told that with my first baby, that I had a low supply and he needed formula. And with first baby and not knowing much and being so young, you know, I didn't really question it. I just wanted, obviously, to feed my baby. And if I'm not giving him what he needs, then I'm going to give formula. And that was fine. But I actually was really depressed because of it, because I personally had my heart set on breastfeeding, and that's what I wanted to do. And thinking that I couldn't provide for him was really heartbreaking for me. So I had to go through a lot to kind of get through that, and know that I was still a good mom, regardless of the fact that I couldn't breastfeed. But turns out I actually could have. The doctors just told me that I had a low supply, so I just went with it. But if I just would have kept feeding him, then my supply would have met his demand, because he's now 11, and then I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I breastfed her just fine. You know, if you're wondering, are they getting enough? You know, they'll tell you if they're still hungry. You know, if you're done feeding them and they're satisfied and not, you know, crying or fussing, then they got all that they need. Also, if they're peeing, if they're having wet diapers, then they're getting enough. Another thing was just always, you know, stressing out about the poop. With poop, I mean, they could poop once a day, they could poop twice a day, they could poop every other day, they could poop one day a week, and it's all like pretty much normal. So that's hard to gauge, but you'll know that they're getting enough if they're having lots of wet diapers. But I just wanted to kind of share that. It's definitely been a journey, and I'm happy that I just kept trying. And what ended up working for us is just continuing to put her on the breast. And, you know, my supply caught up and regulated out. Actually, when we got back from the NICU, I almost was oversupplying because I had been pumping so much, and she wasn't really needing as much as I was pumping. It seemed like, you know, my supply got too much at first, and then, you know, it regulated out. So it's just enough. That's all I really wanted to share. Just wanted to come on here and let y'all know it can be very, very hard. It can be very challenging. But keep trying and keep pumping. Also, what I would recommend is the Haka. It's the silicone manual breast pump that just attaches to one boob. So while you're feeding on one side, you can put that on the other. And as natural letdown happens, it'll start to milk will just start to come out, or you can kind of squeeze it a little bit. And that way you are saving some milk, you know, each feeding, or one feeding a day, or however you want to do it. But that's all I've got for today. Love y'all and hope that you're doing well. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.